Welcome back to Absolutely Marvel and DC. My name is Benny. That is Sal, and that is Dylan. And today we're going to be talking about some amazing news. DC might have its shit together in like 2 years.
Might get its shit together
in like 2 years.
when the implementation goes through, they have it might be the announcement is that apparently Discovery through the merger is going to own or control DC Entertainment, and they're saying they want to make it better.
Yeah. Basically, they're saying that they want a Kevin Feige type situation, and they're not looking for a creative person, but they are looking for someone who can keep everything unified.
Yeah.
So they're looking.
They mean they're not looking for like someone from the comics to come in and become.
No, they
like
want a
Kevin
business
Feige.
person that will keep like the comics in line with the movies, which will keep the movies together, which will keep everything on a unified platform. Which it's so funny about this because DC tried to just emulate the Marvel platform.
Yeah.
By jumping right to it, which we all said was like the bad idea.
Yep.
They went from Superman to Batman versus Superman to Justice League. Like,
Yep.
there was like nothing in between. They just announced a
No.
dozen movies and said, it'll work, we're DC.
Yeah.
Did the same thing
And
with
it
the Dark
kinda
Universe
had-
too. They were just
Yeah.
like, we want it all immediately. It's like, no. Takes time.
And I was like, okay, cool. That's a nice idea, but you're not doing it right because they put Zack Snyder on board, which I'm a fan of Zack Snyder's work, but the issue with Zack Snyder at the end of the day is he's divisive.
Yeah.
Because he's got a different vision for DC that doesn't reflect what the core DC fan base really, really wants. I guess
Right.
the
he
best
makes
way to
one
put it.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be a good movie, but he makes one movie.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I liked it. I liked what he did do, but there was a big divide in the DC fandom of Snyderverse versus I want more traditional superheroes. Like, I don't like what you're doing with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So
Yeah.
that led to DC unceremoniously letting him go while he was quitting at the same time. So whether or not, who knows what actually happened in that. But
Right.
now they're kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, that's the issue. Like, Birds
Yeah.
of Prey is kind of out of continuity, but it does match up with other things. Suicide Squad is ignoring the first one, but it's still technically in continuity with the second one. Flashpoint supposedly is going to reset everything, including Peacemaker, which was just a huge hit.
Yep. Yep. No, it's a mess. And the fact is they don't have a Feige. They don't have a person at the top who is unanswerable to anyone, who can make creative decisions or make movies that are made in the spirit of their source material, which is I think the impetus behind the success of the MCU. And so as a result, there's this merger. AT&T obviously is not a creative outlet. They don't know how to make movies. They're not interested in doing that. They passed it off to Discovery. Discovery is at least an entertainment company. Maybe they'll have a better shot at it. We'll see. And so there was an announcement like from them that was like, we're gonna make it better, and I'm like, good luck, man. But the idea of them saying we want here's a bullet point, here's a 5-point plan about how we're gonna make it better. We're gonna get a Kevin Feige. We're going to not let our IP characters languish under Batman. And,
I liked
and
that.
the rest.
I liked that statement. Like, characters like Superman have languished and done nothing. And yes, we have all said that since Man of Steel.
Right. Well, and for me, everyone's talking about the movies, and they're right, and I think it's because they mentioned Feige. What I'm worried about, what I'm most curious about, is because they're talking about realigning, restructuring, reorganizing. DC Comics has already been restructured and reorganized. They've lost most of their executive staff, most of their editorial staff. Like they are in a weird state of, they have been in a state of flux since AT&T took over DC, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do now? Because right now there is no direction, there's no leadership. It seems to me that even though the DC Comics arm has kind of followed the leader about which all-star writer is directing the line, there was still other people above them who could make executive decisions and did. Like DiDio and Harris. Well, without DiDio and Harris, and I'd say more DiDio than Harris, there's just the same platform of follow the leader, but there's still no editorial direction to guide the line. And if that's the case, what are you going to do? What's Discovery going to do with this book publisher? And I don't know. And I don't think they know either. And that's what I'm really worried about.
That's such a common trend these days, is like companies getting acquired and then having these like grandstanding ideas, and then we kind of hear nothing about anything. And it's like not much changes. And I think like there's evidence in the Variety article that broke this, like that they mention Aquaman, the Batman, and Joker, which are three very different movies.
Right.
And like that, you can take that as a good sign of like, hey, they want to continue to let
Variety.
Let Variety. The article. Let the each movie represent the character and not have them all be one similar tone, but also they're talking about realigning and getting a Kevin Feige, and like I don't know how much input Feige has had in terms of the very similar tone that MCU movies have. You'd have to think some, because he's definitely like the man at the top, but like how much control does he have about like just keeping everything straight in terms of canon, or is he also trying to keep everything straight in terms of tone? Because if like those are two very different things, and like
and all we know really, like, we don't know the influence that Feige has. We don't know the day-to-day. We've never seen him work. So all we do know is that there's this figurehead at Disney / the Marvel Studios who makes the trains run on time. And we do know some trappings around it. Like, we know there is similar theming. We know that there are probably some basic tenets of this universe that they can't break or shouldn't bend. You know, like not ultra violence, no sexuality, not like all this stuff that's just kind of like
Spider-Man can't swear.
Like you can assume that there's all this stuff surrounding it, and that maybe it's attributed to Kevin Feige, or maybe he's just like Dan DiDio at the comic book arm of DC, where it's like DiDio made good and bad decisions, but was happy to take the blame for every bad thing that happened at DC Comics. Feige's just like, you know, I've got a million really, really smart people. Like, if I died, God forbid, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe wouldn't change at all, you know, except it would, because nature abhors a vacuum and movie studios abhor someone not being at the top, and they're all greedy and desperate, and so someone would try and scramble to the top and then make their name for themselves. So maybe it's like the mystique around Kevin Feige so powerful that it's like the next person to ascend to Feige's position. Maybe he just wants to retire and enjoy his very lavish lifestyle that he would enjoy. Whoever would come in almost certainly would disrupt it by being like, here's my creativity, here's what I've got to say, here's where we're gonna go in this direction. And it's like, oh, you've ruined it, congratulations, you're the guy who killed it. I don't know what Kevin does anymore.
You're not wrong. I can't think of it. I mean, we all like to attribute a lot to him, but there's no way he does as much as we're all attributing to him at this point.
Right? And there's
I doubt he's sitting down like, all right, guys, I had a great idea. Let's put Falcon in this one and cross it over.
He doesn't have like strings and characters, and he's like, I do know that, like, when Eternals was coming, he was really hyped about it, and he was like, I kind of really like this movie. Like, and he was excited about it. And I feel like if he didn't believe in it, that movie wouldn't have been made. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
That's his level of power. But
he's got
I don't
sway.
think he was like.
And I think the biggest thing that I would hope that DC in Discovery, I guess, would take away from what Feige does is that Feige very clearly cares about these characters and knows them. And like you look at Feige as opposed to like Amy Pascal, who like Amy Pascal just wants to make money. And she's just making these movies to make money. But Feige, like, his goal is to make money and to appease Disney and everything. But also, like, he knows who these characters are, and he knows like where they would fit and what would work. And I think that's what you take away. If you want to hire a Kevin Feige, like, you already made your mistake with having a guy who makes one type of movie and put him at the helm. Now you're in a space where you have variety. Keep that.
Well, I think the big problem is Zack Snyder. You keep saying one type of movie. I do disagree a little, but it is. I will say it's the same tone, camera shot. Like, he does that type.
Right.
Yeah. Like Michael Bay.
What I mean.
Michael Bay can make great movies, but when you go into a Michael Bay movie, you kind of know what you're getting. There's going to be a very hot woman next to a car with an explosion going off behind her.
Right. I don't want Michael Bay. I don't want Michael Bay to make the Question movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The question's understated and subtle, and his isn't. Like, but
I would watch a Michael Bay Lobo movie, but I wouldn't watch like a Michael Bay like Catwoman movie. That would be awful.
And I'd be concerned about a Zack Snyder Lobo movie, because as much as it would probably work, I don't know if Zack Snyder understands that Lobo's a joke.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like there's subtleties that I feel like if you don't have a breadth of knowledge about these characters, that you're not going to be able to just be like the quartermaster at the top who's thinking big picture and is like, okay, this will work for this will work for that, and that's I think what Feige's doing is just he's been in this industry for so long.
Yes.
And he knows
he's worked on these other movies.
Well enough.
He's worked on the movies that have adapted these characters wrong before, that he can get a pitch from these people, and they're like, we've got an idea for a Wolverine movie, and it's just like antithetical to Wolverine's character, and he's like, that ain't Wolverine, and just like then the buck stops there. Now it's not like it's Sony where they're like, we want to make a Kraven the Hunter movie, and it's like someone at the top's going, that's a terrible idea, we're not going to do that, and that's the end of it. That's the end of it. Instead,
nobody's
like,
there saying that.
No, instead it's like, well, how can we make a Kraven the Hunter movie work? And so in Feige's situation, he doesn't have to navigate that. He doesn't have to try and negotiate, and try and make a character fundamentally fit from a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't have to do that. And that's what the DC universe needs. It's not even people, what they don't need is a fan. They need somebody who likes the DC universe. Just likes it. They can have a favorite character, but they have to like it. Someone goes, hey, I got this great idea about Green Lantern. We're going to make this movie about how they're mass murderers. And he's like, no, we're not going to do that. Because the Green Lanterns aren't mass murderers.
The problem, I think I think DC kind of had that when they had Zack Snyder. The problem is Zack Snyder likes Kevin Feige's good at knowing the overarching, like, okay, Spider-Man did go dark and gritty at this time, but this is what Spider-Man actually is kind of like.
Right.
You know what I mean? Captain America has had Zoloft in his stomach for 10 issues, but we're probably not going to do that.
No.
And Zack Snyder's like, I really like Captain America having Zoloft in his stomach for 10 issues, so that's my whole thing. Like, that's the problem. That was the issue Zack Snyder had. It's like, if you liked Dark Knight Returns, Zack Snyder is your god.
Yeah.
But if you've liked anything else in the last 30 years, we got a problem.
Right. I mean, no, Snyder has, because I said it earlier, and I shouldn't have said that, where he doesn't have reverence for these characters. He has reverence for superheroes, but in the way that someone who doesn't read superheroes does, where it's like, I like the idea, and it's like, you hear about it all the time, about like analyses of the Snyder Cut and whatnot, where they're like, they're these gods, and they look at these shots where it's like, they're big, and they're standing over everything, and it's like, part of the reason why Marvel works is because they're schlubs, and they're like us, or they're idealized versions of us. DC's a little different, but the connectivity is still the same. Snyder's interpretation of heroes is like, they are big and they're powerful and they're great and they're better than you and they have power and they deserve to be better than you because of that power. And it's like, that's not Superman.
Yeah.
And but it
like,
could be Batman. Like
that's Orion. That's
right.
Yes, you do get these. Some of these characters fit into that mold, but you can't have that mentality across the board. Somebody who's just like, who knows, who understands, like DiDio. Not to keep harping on DiDio, but like, dude wrote. I think he wrote Metal Men.
Yeah, he wrote that. I think,
and it was like, he didn't write. He's in charge. He could have said, "I'm going to write Batman for a little while," but he didn't. He wrote Metal Men because he liked the Metal Men. Yeah. And that's the only bit of like self-aggrandizing, like self-insertion that he did, was he wrote the Metal Man. And who's going to argue, right?
Metal Man was
like,
fine. I like Metal Man.
But I'm saying, like, Feige is like, he might have a favorite character, but he's not going to direct all of them, and they're not all going to be his favorite, but he's also not going to marginalize characters. Yeah. And it wasn't like DiDio's like, it wasn't like DiDio went, and by the way, at the end of Dark Knight's Metal, the Metal Men have to save the day. Like, he didn't make his favorite characters the most important characters in that universe. He recognized what was appropriate for what story. And that's really what it is. It's just recognizing the strength of the story and keeping it tonally consistent with the character. So, I mean, we're basically doing the work for DC right now, where it's like, we need somebody who can do these things. And hopefully Discovery understands that's what they need when they say that. Because, like, I don't know. I think everybody always says that, right? Anybody who's been critical of the DCEU is like, they need a Feige. And it's like, do you know what that means? Like
They don't know.
Right? Like, you don't need a dictator. You need somebody where the buck stops here and they understand / like that universe.
Because a lot of people don't realize that about Kevin Feige, but he was a fan. Before all of this, he started his Marvel career out of love for the characters, not out of a job. He didn't know this was going to turn him into like the next big, everyone knows my name. He was just like, I want to make Marvel movies. This will be cool.
Yeah, and I want to make them
why
right.
he did it.
Because he worked on other Marvel movies, and he's like, oh my God.
This isn't working.
Like, he and Amy Pascal are friends because they've worked together. You know, like, he's like, let's make an Iron Man movie that isn't like what Hollywood would normally do.
Yeah, that other stuff we did 10 years ago.
You know? Yeah, like, he's not gonna, exactly. And nowadays, it's funny because, like, I don't know if you can make a Feige the same way, because Feige came from a world where superhero movies were, like, largely dumb. You know, I'm not saying that X-Men was dumb or Spider-Man was dumb. I'm saying that, like, but, like, before all those movies, they were pretty dumb. And then they were starting,
They were
like,
treated the same way.
But then they started to, like, kind of evolve. Like, people were like, oh, I guess if you treat them seriously, it kind of works. Like putting Auschwitz in X-Men. It was like,
Still one of the greatest scenes ever. That Magneto scene
That's
where he runs
unbelievable.
into the two men.
Yeah,
and no one's in costumes. No one, but it's just so.
Oh, that X-Men Origins movie or First Class where Magneto's in the bar.
Yeah. It's just one of the greatest scenes ever. And like,
we're never gonna get a scene like that in the MCU.
No, never.
You know what? This is a complete tangent, but I watched the first Kingsman the other day, and I was like, this kind of feels like X-Men First Class. And then, I realized he
Matthew Vaughn.
directed it, and I was like, wait a minute, he just did that again.
That's exactly what he did. Yeah, no,
He just made the same movie.
Yeah, and Vaughn's been talking about making that X-Men movie forever. So, like, that's been in the wings. He was like, can I just readapt it and make two movies at the same time? Yeah, man, I don't know.
So I do have a problem with this, though. Getting us more. I mean, I'm sure people are gonna love this discussion. If you don't, sorry. But
subscribe anyway.
Subscribe anyway. We do other discussions, but I want to. So This sounds great, but like you said, what do they know what getting a Kevin Feige means? But what I want to ask, this also gives me a little bit of worry, because this is kind of how the DCEU first started.
Right.
Where before actually making movies or plans, they just came out and started naming off superheroes that were getting movies.
Yeah.
And they were and that's kind of like, we're going to fix the DCEU, guys. Do you have a sample? Do you have an example? Do you have anything? No, we're going to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Cool. But you didn't need to tell me that until you started doing it.
Right.
Because now you have my hopes up, and you haven't even hired this person yet.
No.
The next 4 DC movies aren't in a part of this package. You're already resetting at the end of next year with an actor who won't stop melting down. I don't know what to tell you.
The fulcrum upon which your reboot rests is in a person who's incarcerated right now. How can you fix this? And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. It's an uphill battle. It's work. It's hard. And you have also fostered a community of people who are just going to vehemently reject the reboot / new direction. And they're going to reject it using hacking and social media and, like, grassroots, protesting, the way that they'd never protest an actual socially relevant problem. They will argue and fight you like tooth and nail, and you're gonna have to win them over by just having a good product. Like, people are not just saying they didn't like the Batman; they're saying it's an objectively bad movie. Right. And I'm here to tell you they're wrong.
Oh yeah,
that's just wrong.
Like, that's just deliberately obtuse. You're just trying to discredit something because you don't want it, because you wanted something else. You know?
Yeah.
It's like. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be a rough road, but I hope they work it out, and I hope more. Cause for me, I just like going and see good movies. If they make a good DC movie, I'm in. I will go watch it. But what I don't want them to do is F up the comics, because DC Comics is in flux too. Like, DC Comics needs some help, and I hope that they get some leadership in there.
I was talking to my brother about this whole problem with DC Comics right now, and the issue is this. As much as people want to shit and complain about DC Comics having this crazy continuity and Speed Force and Dark Metal and Crisis and all these other things, when those were happening, DC felt conclusive. The reason,
yeah.
and this does pertain to our discussion, because they've said they want to fix the movie arm, but they want to get DC unified.
Yeah.
They said DC. They didn't say DC movies unified. They want DC.
Yeah.
And I finally figured out why. I like Marvel and DC. I like them both. But I figured out why I've always leaned towards DC Comics. And that's because it felt like a grander world, a bigger picture. Something big was happening. While Marvel always did, okay, here's Spider-Man, here's the Avengers, and once in a while they meet up. Okay, here's this. And like, because they've never, like, Devil's Reign just happened, and some books didn't even acknowledge it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I feel like DC right now is going in that direction where, like, okay, if it's the Bat family, Joshua Williamson's got you. But Flash has nothing to do with that. And Aquaman has nothing to do with that. And they're not even connected in their own way. And the Justice League got its own thing going on because Brian Michael Bendis won't talk to everyone else. But now we're also going to kill them in May. So don't even worry about that. And it's just, DC is just at a weird spot where it's like, what are we building to? Where's everything going?
Yeah. I mean, you've got Dark Crisis and Jeff Johns' own thing going on. And they are not connected. And they're going in two different directions. I mean, you had Death Metal and Doomsday Clock in the same breath. They couldn't have been more different.
At the end of the day, you're telling a story, like with a shared universe, and if you want to set it in a shared universe, like there has to be some overlying trend that you're working towards eventually, and it doesn't have to be like a big like Thanos is at the end of this train station story, but like you know, at least something like something to connect everything around that works, and not I think the important bit, like you said about Death Metal and Doomsday Clock, is like don't have two
conflicting
things.
Don't have three Jokers and Joker War in the same month.
Right.
But
that was a weird decision.
That was just terrible. That was, you could tell that was like infighting and like just a sniping at each other.
And for the record, I love Joker War. I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And it should have been the end of the Joker for 5 years, but instead we just have him doing his own thing.
it just thuds. And DC also makes, like, DC tanks Marvel in the graphic novel and aftermarket. So it's like, you don't have, even like, let's say there's people who are like, I don't like interconnected stuff. I don't like, well, don't worry, because they got Black Label and they have all these different imprints, and like you could still read Batman and have it not be connected to anything in the DC universe. You could read, or you could find another character that would never be roped into any of this in the first place.
Yep.
You know, and DC's got you covered, but DC needs to treat themselves like Marvel does, like a book publisher, and not like whatever the hell they are. I was just reading today, somebody said, they call Marvel Comics and DC Comics IP farms, but that's not really accurate, because on farms they grow and nurture and feed their animals. These are mining colonies. These are IP mining colonies where they just drill and dig and break and destroy and explode. Like that, Marvel and DC are treated like IP mining factories because they're like, I don't care. Like their parent companies, I don't care about your books. Just give me the character that I think will make me money.
Yeah.
And that one, good. And make more of this character out there. Put them out there. Like that's it. That's it. It's just, so we need less of that. And so, hopefully DC can find some leadership and get there.
There was a character recently that just popped up in like a dozen books, and I'm like, something's coming up.
Well, I'm waiting for Jaime Reyes to suddenly show up because he's getting that Blue Beetle thing.
He'll show up soon. He hasn't yet, but there was somebody I was just reading that was just crossing over a dozen things, and I'm like, wonder when they're coming out. Like,
exactly, yeah, because it's all just directives. But so do you guys have? When you read this, and now that you're thinking about it, when they said like we're gonna realign it, hopeful or cynical? Like, do you think it's like, I'm optimistic about it, or are you like, good luck?
I'm optimistic because it sounds like even if this is just them just saying it, somebody at Discovery is like, why have you guys not?
Yeah, there's a problem here.
Yeah, like there is an issue, and you guys don't seem to want to be identifying it.
Right.
Maybe it's a business person like a Kevin Feige. Maybe it's a super fan. We don't know, but we know that there's an issue. And like you said, Sal, we make entertainment, so we need to fix that issue.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have like a big blockbuster like Joker and Batman surrounded by flops like Suicide Squad and
yeah, exactly.
A flop for Marvel is a $500 million Eternals movie.
Right.
Like, come on.
It is still turning a profit.
Right. I don't think, for those who are going to quote me, I think it's between 400 to 500. But either way, it's still a successful movie. Like,
right, and that's another thing. That's a totally different topic. Just the fact that like they need to start changing their expectations. Like movie theaters will never be at Endgame levels again. You know, No Way Home was 3 friggin' Spider-Mans. It's the largest property in movies, and they put 3 of them in one movie. That's not going to happen every time. And if it does happen every time, you're going to destroy cinema even faster by making every movie a fruitcake, and it's not going to work.
I just heard like somebody talking about the Oscars, and they're saying how cinema's at a point now where TikTok stars are more well known. We don't have any big name stars anymore.
No.
Like, and I was thinking about that. I'm like, the ones I still hear about are the ones who are like retiring because they were the big names when I was a kid.
Yeah, like people,
Jim Carrey. Like,
like you
I might not come back for Sonic 3. Makes sense, Jim. You're like almost 60. Like,
exactly. Well, like I don't see you really getting a lot of roles right now. People have been using Brad Pitt as the placeholder name for movie stars for 40 years.
Yeah.
It's true.
You know? Maybe Ryan Gosling. Like, but that's, and again, he's like what? Almost 40.
It's weird. We're moving into a weird era, and they're gonna miss out on all this money they could have been making for the last 13 years of the MCU.
That's true. The death of the celebrity. We're in a fascinating period. Another nail in the coffin of our existence called interesting times.
Anyway, we are Marvel and DC. Absolutely Marvel and DC. We are not Marvel and DC. We're absolutely Marvel and DC.
Not yet.
Yeah, DC. If you're looking to hire some guys, we'll work cheap, right, Sal?
Yeah,
you give us a 401k, some health benefits. Like,
I'm in.
Yeah,
relatively speaking, we will work way cheaper than whoever you're thinking of hiring.
Right? Yeah. Whatever the number is, I'm gonna write a number on that piece of paper. I'm gonna slide it. Don't slide it. Whatever it is good enough for me. I know it's gonna be good, but it's only a few $1 million. Oh, only a few.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I'll. You know what? Tell you what. Give me one, and then the other 2 pass to my buddies, and I'll just have like my own little like cool guys club. It'll be
right. Seriously. No. Yeah. A little living tribunal.
Yeah. All right, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We'll be back every day, or try to get back to it. I mean, there's not a lot going on right now, guys, but we'll try to get back every day with more videos for you. Thank you so much.